Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and today we are talking Azshara's Eternal Palace, or rather of course, we are talking the end of the new raid in 8.2, because the first players have now completed the instance on normal, and if you were watching Squishei's Wowhead stream on Twitch, which you should by the way, because he always gets this stuff done first, we'll be using the odd shot from his stream in this video, link in the description, you will have already seen the ending cinematic of the raid, and how this story is going to end, because don't forget, Internet, Ian Hazakostas himself told me that at the end of this raid, we would know who the final boss of the entire expansion Battle for Azeroth would be. And with this in mind, you might well be thinking, is that true? Because, yeah, and you may have even noticed that the internet is currently on fire with initial reactions to the ending of this raid and the cinematic, because generally, I think it's fair to say, people aren't all satisfied. Not because the raid isn't impressive, because it is. Not because this climactic fight against Azshara isn't revealing and packed with awesome lines that unlock so many mysteries, because it totally does. Not with the quality of the actual cinematic itself, because unsurprisingly, it's really great. But because there were two things I think that we all as players wanted to see here more than anything else. We wanted N'Zoth in all his big, juicy, tentacly glory, and we wanted some hard, fast, solid answers as for where this game is heading in 8.3. We need answers as obvious, explicit, and unmissable as a mother-shitting planet in the sky. And with all that in mind, what did we get? Well, I'm glad you asked, Internet, and I ask you please to join me as we talk Azshara's trick, N'Zoth's release, the new cinematic, and the ending of Azshara's Eternal Palace. And we ask, okay, go, 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 go. History lesson, you know how we get here. Azshara opened up a big hole in the sea, we fell down the big hole in the sea, we recover the Tidestone and gain entry to Azshara's big old palace. Excellent. We fight our way through the Naga forces, including the underwater boss. And the Herald of N'Zoth, yes, another one, until we are invited by the Queen to join her in the Circle of Stars, the first reference in this fight to various old god whispers, but particularly those of Il'gynoth. To find him, drown yourself in the Circle of Stars. The Circle of Stars is the very prison where N'Zoth is being held, on the end of these big glowing chains, which form a circle around the darkness. These are Titan creations, of course. These chains are imbued with the arcane power of the Titans, who are legitimately born of planets and the matter of the universe. This is our Circle of Stars. And this is by no means the only one of the annoying tree boss's words that are totally explained in this fight. As the final battle rages, Azshara begins to power down the Titan columns, keeping the waters at bay to drown us in the Circle of Stars. Yeah, I know, you get it, fine, sorry. You can tell when they're powering down because the circular battery bar starts to disappear, because apparently the Titans are also big fans of Apple products, and the players have to use the energy of their Hearts of Azeroth to power them back up, literally completing the circle once again. And I'm not saying this is exactly what Il'gynoth was referring to when he said, your coming was foretold in the rings, the long circle is nearly complete, or what the Eye of the Corruptor in Nazjatar was referring to when he said, step into the abyss, complete the circle. But it does all certainly seem to be on the completing the circle theme, doesn't it? It also, hilariously, looks like a packet of birth control pills, which, you know, welcome to N'Zoth's birth. I'm actually certain that's not intended. So, as this is happening, Taliesin finally realizes far too late that Azshara's big awesome plan is to trick us into unloading our Azerite energy into the space so that she can use it to complete her ritual and free her tentacly master and ours. And all the players are like, yeah, duh. And actually, so is Azshara, which is pretty funny.
You've only just come to this realization. First Arcanist indeed.
Because yes, Taliesin is dumb, and so is Jaina and Lorthamar. Sorry. Azshara's voice actor, Laura Post, by the way, is having a ball with this shit, and it's great to hear. She's awesome. Then she explains another of the whispers.
Such delicious irony. The Diamond King has been made a pawn.
The Diamond King is indeed Magni, and he has been made a pawn. His good intentions turned against him to help bring all of this power right into Azshara's lap. And okay, so we all kind of knew that, but still, it's nice to have it crossed off the list so explicitly and officially. And as I was sitting there watching this happen on Squishei's stream, link in the description, I was genuinely so excited, because just in the narrative of this fight itself, here we were getting everything completely revealed and explained to us, just as had been promised. But just as Azshara revels in her monologue and declares that the Black Empire will rise again, our heroes pull together to turn the tables and hold her in the chamber as the ritual completes, trapping her with us and our pointy weapons as it appears she is bombarded with void energy, which is so powerful that actually the fight kind of bugged out. Or maybe it didn't, maybe this was supposed to happen, but either way, she's dead. We killed her, she's dead now. Which brings us to the cinematic. The moment that was supposed to explain so much. I'm not gonna lie, this is not gonna be the longest cinematic analysis that we've ever done on this channel, but here goes. The most obvious and I think completely intended comparison here is with the beginning of the Azshara Warbringer film. The Naga Queen's arms, straining to keep herself upright, fighting to keep breathing, are a clear echo of her former self, the Highborn Empress, using every ounce of strength she possesses to keep the sundering waves at bay and save her city, Zinashari. The close-up of her mouth in this cinematic, in profile, defiant, but ultimately as doomed as the washed-up fish gasping for breath on the steps of her previously drowned city. Likewise, the close-up of her eyes and the scraping of her nails on the stone, which sounds very similar to the cracking of the arcane barrier behind her in that Warbringer. The use of reflections in the puddles are a recurring device too. In the Warbringer, Azshara sees the image of the person who brought about her downfall, herself. And this time, it's Jaina and Lorthamar, representing the players as much as themselves, who have defeated the Queen, and once again brought the empire that she built come crashing down around her. This is the second city that she has built in her own image and which has been destroyed. And once again, she is ultimately powerless to stop it, as her strength gives out finally, and she dies, arguably for the second time. As Lorthamar and Jaina warily approach, we've completely forgotten about the Titan mechanism that was activated by the ritual, and I really like this shot. That places this new danger literally in the foreground in front of the action we are watching, because it's saying, yeah guys, this is the important thing, this is what you should be worrying about here, okay? And you get these very sharp cuts in viewpoint in time with the clicks of the mechanism, which makes it feel like the countdown of a ticking bomb. Because it really kind of is. And as everything lumbers into place, slowly, inexorably, another circle completes, and this one really means trouble. The spherical barrier turns red, much like the eyes of someone under N'Zoth's control, and the force of the Azerite power, which we handily provided, being unleashed across the Titan construct, first shakes and then completely shatters the glowing chains, their pieces falling away into the darkness of the crater below like shooting stars burning up upon entering the planet's atmosphere. And I know internet, because I feel it too, and all we want at this moment, all any of us want to see, is the prisoner that these chains were holding in place, now released thanks to us. And for one glorious moment, we do. The gigantic glowing eye, now familiar to us in so many ways, opens to the impossibly deep and booming Hans Zimmer bass foghorn sound and the god of the deep is here. Except it turns out he's kind of not, because out of the darkness comes flailing towards the platform where the helpless players stand, not the writhing, fleshy, physical old god tentacle that would have been the absolute money shot of this cinematic, but the foggy, gaseous, voidy, squid ink mist that we saw Azshara being completely unmoved and unintimidated by in that cinematic that opened 8.2. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I honestly think when it comes down to it, this is the problem that people have with this cinematic, if they have a problem with it. But we'll come back to that too. The voidy shadow limbs penetrate the protective barrier, keeping the players alive like it wasn't even there, but instead of ripping Jaina and Lor'themar to pieces, they make a beeline for the body of Azshara. Now, this is the third time in one of these cinematics that we've seen N'Zoth's tentacles, or voidy tentacle substitutes, make a grab for Azshara, and whereas in the Warbringer and the 8.2 cinematic, he pulled away at the last moment, this time, his seething clutches envelop her and rise her up off the platform, and that dark power of N'Zoth scoops up the lifeless queen like the dragon in Game of Thrones, taking the body of Daenerys in his talons. And we are reminded again of that Warbringer, that moment that the drowned, highborn queen begins her transformation into the Naga that she is now. Clearly, N'Zoth is performing a similar change on Azshara this time. I mean, obviously, she's changed from being dead to being alive, which is quite a big deal in itself, but you suspect that's not the end of the process. But whereas the Warbringer revels in the body horror of her bone-cracking metamorphosis into a tentacly fish lady, here we don't get a chance, as she's dragged into the squid ink void of darkness behind her. And as we wonder if we too might soon be following her into the void in some way, we realise that the waters of the crater prison are clear once again, and that somehow our own lives have been spared and set against the vastness of the deep, which makes our heroes Lor'themar and Jaina look absolutely tiny and insignificant in the centre there. That final ominous line, which you better believe we are going to discuss in depth here, booms out.
All eyes shall be opened.
All eyes shall be opened. And whoever that's talking about, it doesn't mean the Titans, as the glowing eyes of the Titan effigies framing us die out. The Titans' last remaining power over this old god has been broken. The last traces of the order that they tried to impose on this world is gone, and the prisoner they so desperately tried to contain is now free. Ladies and gentlemen, it's N'Zoth time. Now, first things first, I'm going to get this out of the way straight up. I don't think, as some people have theorised, that there is more cinematic after the mythic version of this fight. Nothing's impossible, of course, but I would be absolutely amazed if that was the case, and it's not an idea that I'm going to entertain here. This cinematic is all we're getting, in my opinion. And I'm going to admit, the first time I watched it, as Squishei's guild got the world first normal kill, I'm really glad his guild doesn't have a name a bit like Immortalis, by the way, I definitely had one foot in the disappointed camp, for the one singular reason that I wanted this cinematic to flat out tell me what 8.3 was going to be, where it was going to be, and I wanted an explicit, in-your-face eyeful of the actual real and actually there in front of us N'Zoth, and I think really most of us felt the same. So when once again this cinematic raised as many questions as it answered, my initial reaction was one of frustration as much as anything, and that's a shame, because now I've watched it quite a few times to make this video, and now I've properly had time to really think about all the potential and possible outcomes of what this gives us. It's kind of freed me up really to give this cinematic the credit that it deserves, because it really is very good, you know. But I can see why it's received that frustrated reaction in some parts of the community, because most people, like me, wanted the shitting planet in the sky moment. They wanted Blizzard to go, yeah boys, this is it. This is how it's gonna go down. Now you can spend the rest of the patch looking forward to it. I get the whole void ink obscuring the horror of the old god thing. I dare say it'll even be a mechanic in a raid fight involving N'Zoth further down the line, but I do really believe that there wouldn't have been anything like a negative reaction if this had been a real physical tentacle. I mean, for one, we've already seen this seething void smoke before in the 8.2 cinematic, and Azshara didn't give a single shit about it then, so we aren't exactly prepped as viewers to be very scared of it now. And secondly, fog is never a good baddie, okay? Old gods aren't scary because they've got badass fog, okay? They're scary because, to quote Chronicle, sorry Pyro, they are nightmares incarnate, mountains of blighted flesh and writhing tentacles that grow like cancers. So show us some of that, my dudes. So yeah, that and the fact that Darren DePaul's awesome great N'Zoth voice didn't sign off with a "Join me in Nyalotha" has led to a lingering feeling of anticlimax, and I'm sympathetic to that feeling. But if we can look past that, there's so much to look forward to here, namely Azshara and all the eyes which will open. Because Azshara is not dead. Not anymore. For the second time, N'Zoth has enacted a huge change on Azshara. We will definitely see her again. Possibly as a dungeon boss, most likely I would have thought as a raid boss. But what physical form she will take? But what physical form will she take? Will she be the same as now, or an undead version of herself, or have a different physical form completely? And just as importantly, which boss will she be? Like, I know a lot of you think she'll be like the penultimate fight of the final BFA raid. We take out Void Azshara on our way to N'Zoth. And to be honest, I think that's by far the most likely scenario. But what if she's the last? What if the final battle of this expansion is against Azshara again, but this time aided by N'Zoth, like the Titans aided us against Argus in 7.3. And in that case, there's that other Il'gynoth whisper, isn't there? At the hour of her third death, she will usher in our coming. Because more than any other character that we tried to pin that particular whisper on before, Azshara now seems to totally fit the bill. If her first death was in the Sundering, where she was spared by making the deal with N'Zoth, and if her second death was here, where she was once again brought back by his tentacly intervention, if she were to be a raid boss in 8.3, and we were to kill her, like totally for reals this time, whose coming would her third death usher in? I mean, N'Zoth presumably maybe as the last fight of the expansion, but he's kind of already here, right? And also, the whisper says our coming, as in plural, as in more than one. And the God of the Deep's big parting shot in this cinematic is all eyes shall be opened. And lots of people think he might mean the dead, and that N'Zoth is about to raise all of the dead on Azeroth, which by the way there are extra specialty lots now since the faction war, as a new Black Empire army, and that is totally possible. I absolutely buy that as a theory. Azshara was dead when her eyes were opened by N'Zoth to serve him again just before he said it. So it could totally be that on the hour of her third death, N'Zoth will raise all the dead on the planet. It would clearly fit into the death magic themes that have been bubbling not so subtly under the surface of this expansion. Or, and this is the theory I like a bit better, just because I like it better, it means the old gods, as in all of the old gods. Now, we've reached this conclusion on the channel before, but what if the eyes that are about to open are those of the very famously, very many-eyed, or at least very big-eyed, old gods? N'Zoth, and Yogg Saron, and Cthulhu, and the only one we've never seen or heard at all, Y'Shaarj. What if killing Azshara for the third time, it would also incidentally be the third time that we've actually defeated Azshara in-game, since the Well of Eternity dungeon is a thing, don't forget, somehow brings about the return or rebirth of all of the gods that ruled over Azeroth in the days of the Black Empire. Except this time, there are no Titans to sort it all out for us. It's a pretty exciting thought, and one that would be the lead-in to the Black Empire expansion that I so desperately want, just as 7.3 put Sargeras' sword into the planet as a lead-in to BFA. Another thing, which I really like, which is definitely hoping too much, but shit, it's my video, is that all eyes shall open refers to the eye my character has on her head right now, the gift of N'Zoth, because I really want there to be a very good reason that I'm still diligently wearing this transmog ruining eye hat, okay? I've been loyal, okay? Notice me, Tentacle Senpai! Could that be why N'Zoth spared us in the cinematic? I mean, yeah, maybe he's just regaining his full strength after countless millennia wrapped in star chains, but maybe he's not done with us yet. Maybe there's still more ways that we can totally do exactly what he wants us to do, just like we have done for out BFA so far. That wouldn't surprise me. So the hype is very much there, and the possibilities that this ending opens up are incredibly exciting. And as a narrative, that makes sense. But as a player, I just need to know where 8.3 is happening right now. If we're going to Nyalotha or the Dragon Isles or somewhere else, I feel I need to know that now. Now, of course, 8.3 is also probably going to see the conclusion of the war campaign and the story of Saurfang and Thrall's rebel boys and their fight against Sylvanas, and that could well be the main story of that patch with all this Azshara and N'Zoth stuff going on behind. Honestly, that's probably why we don't have the specifics of the final patch yet, because there's still more of that story to come in 8.2.5 that they don't want to spoil. And that's fair. I just hope that we know soon, because now that we have had a succulent, juicy taster of my favorite, oh god, I need more. I need it all. But what do you think, guys? Are you one of those that felt a little bit let down by this ending? And if so, have you warmed to it a bit more since, like I did? Do you think N'Zoth is now nailed on to be the final boss of this expansion? His many eyes all opening after we kill Azshara Mark III one bus before him? Or do you think it will be Azshara to usher in the coming of the next expansion? And where does Sylvanas fit into all of this? I personally suspect that Nathanos is totally being led to the Dragon Isles by Xal'atath at this point. Maybe that's a different video. I genuinely need to hear your opinions on this, so let us know in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today. If you like this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give their actual real life money to make all of them happen. Without them, there would be a whole lot less Taliesin and Evitel. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Squishei, link below. No, my name is Taliesin for me and Evitel. Until the weekly reset next time, cheerio.